So, hello everyone. Just gotta turn down the TV. Sorry about the reflection in my glasses. Maybe if I look that way all the time while I'm talking. I just want to talk about retirement. It's not what I thought it would be. I thought that when my husband and I retired, we would be able to go to Alaska. We always wanted to go to Alaska. Didn't happen. I thought that we would do things we always talked about. I mean, we did a lot in our life, but I'm finding retirement to be very different. I thought I would love to be able to go down and see my sister down south anytime that I wanted. Well, in order for that to happen, I have to drive. I'm 71 and I'm a good driver. I'm a good highway driver. I'm careful. I've never, touch wood, had an accident or anything, but I'm not a traveler. I was with my husband. He was the one who always had the courage to say, let's just go do it. Now it's me, and I have a cat. You all know I have a cat. Yeah, Massey. I call him my $3,000 cat. Yeah, he likes to fight. So he's been grounded. Comes in at 10:30 at night and doesn't go out till 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, this cat, one day I'll tell you his story, but not tonight. So, yeah, we had plans when we retired. Now, when I was younger, I was pretty sick. I had pretty serious kidney disease, and I have Crohn's disease, and I've got thyroid disease. I've got a lot. And now that I'm older, that is all settled down. So my Crohn's has settled down. My kidney is doing fine. And when I was younger, I actually spent a lot of time in the hospital. And I feel bad about that, but there's nothing I could do. My husband would look after the kids. And there were times where I was over 1,000 miles away from home in order to get the treatment that I needed. And I would go on my own. And the first little while, it was down to southern BC, Vancouver. And that's a 2-day trip. We've made it in a day, but don't even try it. So, yeah, we did a lot in our marriage. We lived in southern BC for a year. I disliked it. I found that people were different, and I was used to living up in the north. And in the north, a lot of people don't have their families or anything like that. And so people have a tendency to be around each other more and accepting more. I found down south it was very if you belonged to a certain family, you had a certain group of friends. And in the north it's not like that. In the north, everybody basically, just thinking, if I remove my glasses, there you go. You won't see the sparkle of the light. Um, Basically, all of us were up here without family. Now, I was fortunate. I had two sisters who lived up here at the time. I now have one. The other one has moved away many, many years ago. So, yeah, retirement. For those of you who are younger and who listen to my channel, and thank you for doing that, do your traveling now. If you're younger, go do it. I can't say that enough. If you've got something you want to do, go do it. When you get older, It's very strange. What you would do when you were younger, well, there's different considerations because there could be health problems, there could be widowhood, which is where I'm at right now. And I will be because I have no intention of ever getting married again or anything. I'm 71. I had a really good marriage. We loved each other deeply. And yeah, so no, not in the future for me. I'm very content to be on my own. I would love to have my husband here with me. And I listened to one show. It was on Chernobyl. And some of the older people went back and lived in the towns that had been evacuated. And they went back. And the people that were being interviewed were in their 80s. And most of them were women, believe it or not. You know, men usually, it's men have a tendency to pass away sooner than women. And I think it's how they work. Now, my husband was an oil patch guy. Not really oil patch. He worked at gas plant, an electrician. So he was exposed to a lot of chemicals and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, he smoked. You know, it was the generation where you smoked and all that kind of stuff, and nobody thought about it because, you know, you really didn't experience loss. I mean, loss came naturally, and, you know, your parents passed away before you did, and that kind of stuff. But now that I'm a widower, life is different. It's just different. Trust me on that. There, so I want to encourage all of you young people, and if you're just newly married, have faith in each other. Make it through the hard times. The hard times will come. They do. It's a given because you're two different people. And I won't say that my husband and I didn't have hard times. We did. And I'm sure there's times where he wished he was on a different planet, one that I was not on. And there were times where I wished he was on a different planet, one that I was not on. And I just read something the other day. They were talking, it was I think a little thing. And they were talking to people who'd been married for a long time. And the one woman, one of the comments was this, and I think this was on Instagram: I wish that I had not held the grudge so long, that I had not had the days of anger, this going to sleep mad. And that's something my husband and I didn't do. We would stay up and we would talk about it. And it wasn't always pleasant. So, you young people, it's not always going to be that romantic connection. That will be there. But if you are truly invested in one another, you will find ways to get through your difficulties. And I want to encourage everyone. You know, if you want to travel, go travel. You know, don't let it hold you back. I always thought that I was the traveler. No, I'm not. I'm not a traveler. I don't like to travel. I find it very unsettling. My husband was the adventurer, not me. I always thought it was me. But now that he's gone, he was the adventurous soul. He's the one who wanted to go see what's around that corner. I was more the cautionary one. Well, do you think we should go around that corner? And he would often say, only fear and common sense is holding us back. So, needless to say, I do miss my significant other. I often listen to marriage vows, and I can be quite blunt. Anybody who knows me, I can be very blunt. And a lot of people who know me well, they say, you know, you should really show them your real self. Well, I'm very blunt. I can be very opinionated, but I also will admit if I'm wrong, maybe not willingly. Whoever does that, I don't know anybody. Um, but yeah, there. So yeah, there's in the marriage vows, there's one paragraph that if you are just dating or you're engaged, you're going to be married, please take this one paragraph seriously. That one paragraph is through sickness and then health until death do us part. That is a very serious sentence. And if you feel that you can't live up to that, maybe don't say it. That's very old school, and I know there's a lot of people who will be mad at me for saying this, but it's true. And the grass is not always greener. It will be greener until you get to the point that it is no longer greener and it's work. It doesn't matter what relationship you go into, there is going to be hard work. There's going to be tears. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be wishing you were on a different planet, 1,000 miles away. But find a way to communicate with each other. Now, people used to say to my husband, he'd say, well, what was your secret with you? And we've been married 50 years. And his secret is never go to bed angry. And we didn't. One of us would always apologize. Or both of us. And there were days, and this is the truth, we would go to bed and agree to disagree. You don't always have to agree with each other. I mean, there were times where, oh my goodness, I'd be out gardening and I didn't come in till late. But we always talked about it. And then the other one, he says, and one good turn gets all the covers. So that was his sense of humor. He had a really good sense of humor, and he wasn't afraid to laugh at himself. Like he was a teaser, and I often say he was a Gemini. So you never quite knew what part of him would be showing up. So yeah, we lived a really good life. I can't complain. And I do miss him. There's days that are difficult. And I have a tendency to be on my own on those days because I'm sad. You know what? It's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss them. Life will never go back to the way it was. I'm a changed person. I'm a very independent person. I always was. Like, even during the years where I was so sick, there were many times that I would go down and be in the hospital on my own, but my husband needed to be with our children. He needed to provide that stable environment, and my sisters helped a lot too. So when my husband would go to work, one of my sisters would look after the children. So yeah, there's days where I'm still deeply, deeply sad, but not overwhelmingly sad. My nature is to be a positive person, to look at the positive side of things. And I usually do. There's things that I find difficult. Listening to music still makes me teary-eyed. Yeah, no. I will listen to it once in a while because I think, you got to harden yourself up here, girl. And always end up teary. Going to crowded places. I said to my granddaughter one day, I said, I was in church the other day and I couldn't breathe. And I said, I couldn't breathe. I had to leave. And she's got a diploma in mental wellness. I forget what it's called. But she's done a 2-year program on that. And she said, Grandma, that's anxiety. And I thought, well, I've never I've never ever in my life felt like that. But you know what I think it is? Is I suddenly realized I was on my own. I always had Ken. I got married when I was 19. Yeah, when I graduated one week, got married the next week. And Ken had asked me to marry him on our second date. I thought, oh, you're weird. And I thought, well, he persisted. He persisted, and good thing he did. We had a good marriage, and I loved him. But I had never felt anxiety like that, and I still feel it. And some people don't understand it. Um, Sorry about that. They're always saying you should come to church events and stuff like that, and I just can't do it. I just can't. My heart wants to do it, and I want to go there, but I get this overwhelming. I think it's a feeling of loss. And when we lost our son over 20 years ago, our oldest son passed away in a motor vehicle accident. And I felt I wasn't alone. My husband was there. We went through everything together on the first, and one day I'll talk about all that. But he was there. He was my rock. He was the person. I often say he loved me even during my ugly. And trust me, we all have the ugly part in us. And he loved me. And during the time, many, many years ago, I looked up at the supper table one day and I said, I'm done, I'm leaving. And the kids are sitting there. I to this day, I'm so embarrassed to even admit it. He looked up and he said, What? I said, I'm getting my apartment and I'm going to go be on my own for a bit. So, you know what happened? Is he got out the paper and he said, okay, let's find you one. I thought, oh shit. He's serious. He's got the paper out. And then he kind of looked up at me and he grinned and he says, maybe you should go see the doctor. So I went and saw the doctor and I explained what my feelings were. Well, I had had major surgery several years before, and they had taken most of my intestine out. Normally you have 20 to 26 feet of intestine. Well, I'm left with just 6. That's total. Just 6 feet. That's it. So what happened is I wasn't able to absorb vitamin B. I had no vitamin B, basically none. My thyroid was totally out of whack. And trust me, read about thyroid. It controls a lot of stuff. Vitamin B too. And then the specialist phoned me, he says, you have virtually no vitamin D. So I came home. I was so happy. I was tearful. And I said to my husband, I said, I'm not going crazy. All this stuff's going on. So I never ever did. And my husband supported me through all that. He understood. I said, it's going to take some time. And then during that time, okay, I'm a woman and you go through menopause. So that was happening too. And I said to my doctor, I said, if you don't help me, somebody's going to, end up in a bad situation. And so they also put me on Premarin. And I know that a lot of women won't go on it because there is a risks with it. And you should all read about it. Always be informed about whatever your doctor's going to do. Make sure you go into it informed and with an open mind. So I said, okay, I'll take that too. And so within a month, I was back to me. Thank goodness. Can you imagine? But it was, so there's things like that when you have a partner and you notice all of a sudden they're different. Like, where is this coming from? And And today it's a different age we're in. People get married after knowing each other only a month or two. Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't know each other. I say to my granddaughter, I said, you need to see whoever you're planning to marry, you need to see them in all situations. You need to see what you have in common. And in 2 months, you can't know that. You can't know that. And I told her, I said, if somebody wants you to move in after 6 months of knowing them, red flag, red flag. And so she laughs and she says, oh, Grandma. And I said to her, I said, I knew your grandfather. I made him wait for almost 2 years before I married him. I was able to see how he treated his mom. So however someone treats their mom, that's how they're going to treat you. Maybe not all the time. There's different situations, of course. But see them when you're out together. Are they extremely jealous? Are they, watch them and study them and get to know them. You're not always going to have the same interests. That's a given. But do you have basically the same goals in life? And my goal in life was I wanted to be married. I always wanted to be married. And I always wanted children. And I'm the type of person that, and there were two things. There were two things I told my husband that would be a hard no on. And one of them is if he cheated on me with someone else, that's it. No second chances. The other one is if he beat me or mentally abused me. No second chances. I was very strong within myself. My parents raised, even though they were divorced and went through their own problems, I did get the good part of my parents who instilled that, and we were also raised as Catholics. So we had the right and wrong thing, and yeah. So those are the same values that he had in life. And I did see him interact with his sister and his mom and his dad. And I thought, okay, that's good. And I watched him around little kids, and he was really good with them. And I also watched him around teenagers because I had a couple of sisters, and they were teenagers at the time, and he was very good with them. And so we had many of the same values. So those of you who are thinking about getting married and getting into the relationship, really get to know each other. And 2 months, no, not going to work. It might. You might be one of those rare cases. But really talk about everything. We had marriage counseling before we got married. And the chaplain, was he a chaplain? Reverend. We had to do these marriage courses. My husband didn't want to. And I said, nope, he won't marry us unless we do. And so we went. And we did a test. And I'm not a huggy person. I'm not an overly affectionate person. Never have been. My mom said I was a happy baby. And even as a kid, I would enjoy being on my own. So the Reverend said to my husband, he said, Sherry needs her alone time. I would get overwhelmed. And to go out on a walk or to go somewhere, that's where I would think about it and think, yeah, maybe, yeah, I would toss around different things. And then he looked at me and he said, and Ken needs a hug. So Ken was the type that he always, most of the time, needed that hug or that encouragement where I could be very independent and I can do it myself. Now you get a glimpse of who I am. I can do it myself. What do you mean? Except traveling. Don't like traveling by myself. Yuck. Ugh. Means that I'm responsible for everything I do. Ooh, not good. No, I'm pretty good. So yeah, I'm hoping that this video kind of maybe helps someone along the way and gives you things to think about. to know retirement probably isn't going to be what you think it is. It is really different. I'm not saying it's bad, but when you get into retirement, and we're starting to notice this more and more, you find that people that you once knew are either really ill, or maybe they have passed away, or even your significant other is gone. So you need to navigate that path. You need to find a new path. Where for 50 years, it was Ken and I. I was his wife. He was my husband. I was the kid's mom, you know, and they were my kids. Well, now I have myself. I do have a wonderful younger son. He's just wonderful. He's awesome. And I have my granddaughter is my oldest son's daughter, the one who passed away. And they're both wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human beings. But they can't fill that void. I have to be able to navigate this time in my life and find my way. So I'm going to sign off. And every once in a while I have these little chats, or I may be out in the garden, or I still have to do my whippersnipper video. Yeah. I like whippersnipping. I whippersnip everything. It's easy. Makes your yard look simple. So I'm going to sign off for now. And like I said, I hope that this video is encouraging. And that, yes, retirement is different. Retirement for us was helping my husband fight cancer for 8 years. It was hard. I won't say it was easy. It wasn't. But I loved him. And in my marriage vows, in my covenant with him, I'm a Christian, and I know God made a covenant with us that I would love him through sickness and health, or through health and sickness, whichever way it goes, until death do us part. I took that vow seriously, and so did he. He had, oh, here I go again. I said I was going to go. Now I've got some more to say. He had been married before, and unfortunately, it was a very short marriage. And I won't go into the details of it. It only lasted, I think, for a year, maybe 2. And so he was divorced. I didn't know him when he was married. I didn't know his ex-wife at all. I met him maybe a year or 2 after he'd been divorced, and he told me right up front. And my dad did have a problem with that. He said, my dad was 6 foot something. You didn't mess with him. When it came to his daughters, he would call you on it. Not that he'd ever do anything. I don't think I remember him. Yeah, he went and saw Kim once and said, "What are your intentions towards my daughter?" Yeah. And he had an imposing air. My dad, yeah, you when he said do something, you did it. Didn't question it. So anyhow, I will have other chats throughout our vlogs, whatever, VLOG, vlog. And yeah, just kind of, just chatting. These talks are good for me. It helps me talk through it. Everybody else has heard it all. And sometimes, I'm a woman, and I used to tell my husband, a woman needs to talk about it more than once, more than 3 times. It could be 100 times. We need to talk about it. And he learned to just listen and nod his head. And, okay, she's doing it again. But yeah, anyhow, signing off for now. Take care. Take care of yourselves until we vlog again, or until we meet again in the next vlog. Talk to you later. Bye for now.